Hey everybody, it's Doc, and I am sitting here just doing some studying. Young Christians, I want to demonstrate to you why it's so important that you read before you just present something. Also, be careful not to try to talk intelligent to sound intelligent. A lot of times it just gets you in trouble. You can just look at basic things, basic concept. You don't have to use big words or anything, but often this is what happens. This is why the Bible talks about avoiding ignorant and foolish disputes, for they generate strife. We have people that's all they're about, doing is generating division and strife. I want to use this as an example as to why it's important that when you're studying, first and foremost, you as a person who's a Christian, apologetics is not just given to one group. It's something that every Christian should know. Every single Christian should know. You should be able to give a reason why you trust God. You should give a reason why you believe in God, why you trust Him, why you cling to Him, why you are part of the kingdom, why you know that this is your hope. Okay? Do not listen to them when they're talking about that you simply just without evidence. I'm going to be doing a video where the Bible literally points out the evidence and points out its own evidence to present reason why this is all true. But I'm going to show you an example of what happens when you just grab hold of stuff. They used to tell us, and I used to get this in middle school and high school when I was writing reports. Just because you see a word in a document, a book or something, about a subject that you're studying or researching or writing a report on, if you don't read everything that's in it, you could just take out a portion of it and then add it to your report thinking that you have cited some source or something. A lot of people don't think that people won't go back and look at the source. And when you start reading it, or you even read what a person has posted, especially here on Facebook or any other social media, most people don't think that people are going to go back and look at it. They're just going to take their word for it. Here's the thing that's so interesting to me when it comes to the Black conscious community. You guys complain and say that Christians just grab hold of stuff and then just, don't even research or anything. Just takes the word of whoever says it or however. But you guys do it just as much. And I'm going to give you the example. Let me show you here. I'm going to find this entry. In fact, let's just go and give you a really good example of what this looks like. So here's a page here. Woke Christian in the Black conscious community. So if I get this to load up. Lately it's been really going slow, so I don't know if it's just the fact that a bunch of people are on or what's happening. But this is, you know what, I'm gonna have to come out and go back in. Let's do it that way. So I think I'm gonna have to go out and then go back in. Let's see. I actually didn't post on this. Let's get, it's doing it again. Okay, here we go. Alright, so here's the post. So there's this individual here by the name of Dex9 Ether Lab. So the posting was basically, and he and several other individuals are constantly saying that Christianity comes from Greco-Roman religion, saying that it's a Hellenistic religion and so forth and so forth. And there's several things that goes on. Number one, timelines. Number two, when you use the fallacy of parallelism to try to say just because something is similar and it sounds similar to it, then say, oh, this is derived from that. If you did that, if you young Christians don't ever do that, if you do that in even a collegiate realm and you pull that stunt, I'm telling me somebody's gonna call it real fast. But let me show you how this is a rule of thumb that I've learned. if you look for something, you're bound to find it. And sometimes it's not a positive thing. Sometimes because your heart intent is so perverted that you'll look for everything to try to back up what you're saying. It goes both ways. As a Christian, you're constantly looking at things to feed and foster what you believe. But guess what? As a sinner, as an atheist, as someone in Kemet and all the other false religions, you'll do the same thing. So watch this. So while y'all are preparing your communion clothes, read this. So he did this blog from the British Museum. But first and foremost, if you're someone who wants to have a dialogue with someone, they give you material, read the material. A lot of times people don't expect you to do it. We have this thing now on social media where we do this spot reading. Most people don't even expect you to actually thoroughly read it. But I'm going to show you how basically the information that was posted really ends up biting them in the butt. Let me show you. So first thing, if I am, and I am, my background in a doctorate in Christian counseling theory, but one of the things that they often tell us is to learn how to study and learn how to research. And I had to write numerous, papers and stuff as far as, moving ahead with the master's degree and the doctorate degree. But here's the thing, you don't have to have degrees in order to study and learn, but you have to learn how to research. And there's different things that you do. One basic rule of thumb, just because you see a topic, a name of something in a paper, or a document or a book, videos or whatever, does not mean that that's a good source. You need to check the fullness of the content of the source, because sometimes your argument or premise you're putting forward, it'll disprove it. So here's what he did. So of course he says, so the Rosetta Stone First Sunday Communion, the veneration of the Hellenistic culture. The Rosetta Stone was coronation decreed by the Seleucid Coptic Egyptians to Ptolemy Epiphanes. So the purpose was to here's what he's saying. The purpose was to reestablish Greek culture to the Egyptian territories. And the question is like, why was Egypt being taken over so much? But here's what he's really, the point that he's saying, during the time of Ptolemy, most lower and southern and some upper Egypt had fallen to indigenous rebellion leaders. The coronation was a decree to celebrate a foreign king monthly. So sacramental meals were a pre-Greek tradition of the mysteries. And the question is, the mysteries of what? So you got to remember, even the Bible talks about there were these mystery religions that people were saying that there were these deep religions that a lot of people were not privy to or they didn't understand. So they're saying that basically that communion was a part of that, or it was a copycat of those things. So we gotta toss that out. Again, here we are dealing with parallelism. So the Eucharist is the origin of First Sunday Communion. Ptolemy V was given the title Eucharist. Now, here's the thing. If you said this amongst scholars dealing with religion, just religion, you're going to get laughed out of the room. Because basically, let me show you what he did. He basically took two words or so and combined them because they sound like Christ. He's saying that, oh, this is where it comes from. Here again is when we're dealing with the etymology of words and so forth. It's the same stuff that goes on over and over again. That you cannot do that. Well, you can, but it's not a good idea. But let me show you something else. So if I see this post and I see all these things, the question is going to become, well, how they are related. Now, let me show you where he should have really not done this. This is what I want to use this example to young people, that when you're trying to present some type of premise and everything, you gotta know what you're presenting, because if someone decides to read it, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So let me show you. All right. So what he did is he highlighted the things that would back up his claim. The problem is he doesn't think that someone's going to read everything he presents. And literally, if I read every page here, I don't want to do this video for long, But I want to point to you just using one page that he's already read into a problem. His hope is that nobody sits down and reads this stuff. He only hopes that people only read the highlighted part. This is the stuff that young people, young Christians, don't do this. Be able to explain your premise, be able to give a source for it, but make sure that the source is useful to leading people to your premise fully as good proof. Because what could happen is, because you think there's some association with a word or something, somebody else sits down and reads it and go, did they read it themselves? So listen to this. Your Chris regarded as actualization of a soteriological drama is in line with contemporary mysteries, which purported to represent the suffering and the triumph of a God in which his worshippers sympathize and share. There are differences. It is not a seasonal rite, but a regular rite independent of time of the year. The triumph of Christ, a triumph over forces of evil rather than mere death, and has a moral value which is all its own. It is moreover what is believed about a recent historical event, not about something in the midst of the past, but there is a fundamental unity of conception. The Year of Christ is a mystery, as mysteries were then understood, and Christianity, the heir of Judaism, has also essential spiritual continuity with Hellenistic religion. Now, he notice he highlighted these things. Here's the problem. He was hoping you didn't read the next couple of lines. Nevertheless, here's where this was just a very bad move. Nevertheless, on our evidence, we must conclude that it's parallelism. Parallelism comes from an independent basis. In other words, you can't say something is derived from something if it's already been indicated to be parallel to it. That means the two things don't derive from it. They can have similarities. Fundamentally different, subjectively the same. You can literally look at some things and go, oh, this is similar, this is similar, this is similar. But one doesn't derive from the other. We have in fact here one of the clearest cases of convergent religious development. If he would have been smart, he would have literally read all of this and said, you know what, this may not be a good argument. It only points out the parallelism, but it does not look at the derivative of one thing from another. Okay. In fact, let's look at something else here. Let's go here. I'm going to show you what the word when we talk about convergent. Look here. Convergent. Coming closer together. How is something coming closer together if one is derived from the other? He should have read the research. He should have looked at the document. Coming closer together, especially in characteristic of ideas. Okay. Now I'm going to show you some other things as why he tries to force the issue to get people to go, oh, this is what this is. Let me show you something else. I would tell everybody, go back and read those other. There's like 4 pages he puts there. He did not think about this at all. Now, let's go to, there was a comment here. Okay, here it is. Well, let me go back to this. All right, here's your Arium Christ, returned Christ. He's saying that this name Arium Christ means returned Christ. Again, not thinking that anybody's going to literally say, let's look this up. So, and this is why I tell people, don't always use online stuff for everything. All right. So we're typing this in to see if we can find this. So what we're looking at here is we're going just basic stuff. People are looking like, okay, where is this at? So whenever this happens, the next thing you should do is ask the person for the source where he got that meaning and everything else from. Where did he get that from? Okay. Now here's what's real interesting. We're gonna do something else here. Let's go back. Again, this is why I tell people you have to be careful what you're posting. People do check this stuff out. I'm someone that wants to learn more about why people's worldviews are the way that they are. So watch this. I'm looking at, going back to this page, one thing that he also hopes, just he and a lot of these individuals have learned, you cannot get pseudo work anymore if it doesn't have um, footnotes, if it doesn't have other sources, if it doesn't point to primary sources. They're learning that we're not going to take that anymore, you know. But the other thing that he probably hoped that nobody didn't think to do, this is a little book here, Early Gentile Christianity. He doesn't think nobody's going to turn around and, well, let's find the book. So what I did, as I said, you know what, this might be a book that I would love to buy from Amazon. So let's type it in, Early Gentile, and I tell young Christians, take the time to do this. We ain't all over, folks. So here's the book that he was using. Let's pull it up here. Early Gentile Christianity and its Hellenistic background. Okay, so here again, this is an individual that is basically believing that Christianity comes from Greco-Roman. Now, if we want to look at this from the biblical standpoint and from a study, what we got to look at is, okay, what we would take every form of meal, put them beside each other or celebration, and say what has one similar to the next. The real question that should have been asked is, how many of these meals have a representation of the death, burial, and resurrection of the living God who died for the sins of the world? You won't find it in any other religion. It does not exist. In fact, this same individual, he told me that Osiris was similar to Jesus and that he died for the sins of the world. I said, point to me the literature, the primary resource that shows that. Still hadn't heard that question answered yet. But usually when you do this, let's look at stuff like reviews, okay? In fact, what I was looking for was the concept and the explanation of the book. Okay, so here's the description. So we're going to try to, wait a minute. I'm trying to pull up the description. Okay, as you notice, there isn't one. So usually when I see that stuff, it did have footnotes and everything else, so maybe it doesn't have much of a description. So the next thing you end up doing is you go to, sometimes it's good to read reviews. Read reviews. This was one that's interesting. It says, I was able to enjoy this, but it would have helped immensely if I knew Greek and Latin due to all the word and phrase references. I was probably smart enough to know that Hellenistic doesn't mean being influenced by someone. Of course, that's a joke named Helen. He said the bottom line here seems to be that while Gentile Christians did have a Hellenistic background, the Christians had a Hellenistic background. Not that Christianity had a Hellenistic background, the Christians did. Their faith did not. This was ultimately what this book is talking about. He's looking and saying that look at all the similarities and other things, but it does not mean that the Christianity is derived from Helen. So here again is someone who's grabbing stuff and not knowing what they're reading. So so it's just very interesting. I would tell people, look at this stuff. Here's what I'm saying to young Christians. Whenever you do a study or whenever somebody puts something out, don't take anybody's word for it. Even the Bible says this. Go back and look for it. Test the spirits. Just because somebody says something, and trust me, whenever I start seeing people, simple things like you can't even give your real name. Everything's got to have some type of code name behind it, and cartoon character type stuff. It makes you say, okay, do I see any legitimacy behind what they're saying? Now, you got to be careful of not running into the fallacy of judging the character and excluding the information they're presenting, because they can be a bad character, but the information is true. That could still exist. So I got to be careful of that. But again, young Christians, when I'm telling you that, don't just grab stuff and run with it. Be very careful about that, because this is how people are deceived. Go back and study it. Go back and look at what's going on. Most of the time, just like we did now, you'll find a lot of stuff that they're presenting is wrong. I'm Doc, and I'm out.